This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. Whenever I get my vaccine appointment, I might go ahead and ask if they got a little something for my social anxiety for when I have to speak to people face to face again. I'm gonna need some time to get used to that. Anyway, here's what we got for y'all. Russia's security service found a new purpose for a 20-year-old website spreading disinformation about the COVID vaccines. We'll tell you more about who they are targeting. Plus, it's the end of an era as Keeping Up with the Kardashians kicks off its final season. We'll take a look at how it's impacted pop culture over the last 14 years. But first, here's what you need to know right now. More people are questioning the definition of a hate crime after 8 people were killed across the Atlanta area Tuesday night. 7 of the victims were women and 6 of them were Asian. Hate crime laws vary by state, but according to the Justice Department, in the simplest terms, a hate crime must include both a crime, obviously, and a motivation for committing the crime based on a bias. According to law enforcement, the suspect said his actions were not motivated by race, but instead about eliminating sexual temptations. When he was arrested, the suspect reportedly told police he was on his way to carry out similar crimes in Florida. It's worth pointing out the suspect targeted businesses known for employing Asians, and many people aren't buying the fact that race wasn't a part of the crime, regardless of whether that's explicitly mentioned by authorities.
I'm scared for my wife, who gets heckled walking through Diversity Plaza.
The hashtag #StopAsianHate has been trending as celebrities, lawmakers, and activists share their thoughts on the shootings.
I think this country has a reluctance to admit that there is very real and deep-rooted systemic racism that does result in violence.
One thing you can say is that even if he says explicitly that it was not racially based, all you have to do is peel away a layer to ask the question, why is temptation in the form of an Asian woman?
On Thursday, a House Judiciary Committee held a hearing about discrimination against Asian Americans. President Biden ordered flags to be flown at half-staff throughout the weekend in honor of the victims of the shootings. In a tweet, Biden acknowledged the motive was still unknown and called the recent attacks on Asian communities un-American. The 21-year-old suspect is currently charged with 8 counts of murder. New York is taking some pretty big steps toward reopening. On Thursday, Governor Cuomo announced that starting April 1st, sports stadiums will be allowed to have limited crowds, just in time for opening day. And large outdoor performing arts venues can host live concerts and shows with 20% capacity. By April 5th, restaurants outside the city will also be allowed to open to 75% capacity. There's other evidence of things slowly returning to normalcy. AMC says it will have 98% of its theaters back open Friday. Disneyland is also set to reopen next month, but some health experts say all of this is happening way too soon. Yes, the number of people getting vaccines continues to gain ground, but so are deadlier variants that are spreading across the country. Michigan is one of the states with the highest confirmed cases of the UK variant. Last week, the state saw a nearly 50% increase of all COVID cases from the low mark in February. At least 14 other states reported an increase in cases compared to the week before. Severe weather rolled through several states and put others on high alert this week. Several tornadoes were reported in Alabama and Mississippi Wednesday, knocking out power for roughly 20,000 homes and businesses. Those same storms then moved toward Georgia and the Carolinas. That meant some school districts switched to online learning to keep kids home. It's been a pretty calm tornado season so far, but scientists say it could ramp up during late March into April, due in part to a La Nina climate pattern. The last time this happened was in 2011, the second deadliest tornado season on record. A Russian disinformation campaign has set its sights on coronavirus vaccines, as we're up to about 2 to 3 million Americans receiving doses each day. Newsy's SASHA INGBER tells us about how Russians are targeting service members and veterans, especially Black veterans and other veterans of color, with vaccine skepticism.
For years, Russia has been targeting American service members and veterans with disinformation. Now Newsy has learned that includes a nearly 20-year-old website currently promoting COVID vaccine skepticism.
A senior government official tells Newsy Veterans Today is one of 26 identified websites secretly directed by Russia's security services.
A look at its headlines on the pandemic claims that Russian vaccine Sputnik V should be the platform for a Russian-American détente because it's the only way of bailing America out, and flaws in Pfizer's vaccine. The site also promotes other government-labeled Russian fronts and Iran's press TV.
The Russians are pushing vaccine skepticism into the veterans community, especially for Black veterans and veterans of color. If a veteran is fooled by Russians into thinking that the vaccine isn't safe, they're more likely to die.
Iraq War veteran KRISTOFER GOLDSMITH previously investigated Russian influence operations on armed forces and vets, finding pervasive targeting and scant protection.
I lived in an infantry world, holding a gun on the streets of Baghdad. I was never taught how to expect and defend myself against attacks from foreign adversaries online.
Veterans Today explicitly states it has no Russian sponsors. When Newsy contacted senior editor Gordon Duff, he suggested Newsy was under the influence of foreign intelligence and denied any official links to Moscow.
I'm joined by Gordon Duff, a Marine Corps veteran and editor of the independent news website Veterans Today.
Duff declined an on-camera interview, but did tell us the site is currently under federal investigation and that he's suspected of being a Russian agent. The FBI declined to comment.
So why would a website that is known to be run by Russia's security service be left online?
Sometimes when you have an intelligence operation identified, it's useful to let that intelligence operation run for a while to see exactly what they're up to, who is going there, and who they are potentially trying to recruit. It's a trade-off.
A Pentagon official testified this week that the Defense Department is developing a digital literacy initiative for service members.
Our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, guardians, civilians, and their family are part of the American public directly targeted by malign actors, disinformation, misinformation, and propaganda. DoD views this as a critical force protection issue.
Veterans Today doesn't have a large following, despite a nearly 2-decade existence, but it saw a significant rise in visitors in January, around the time of the Capitol insurrection. From Washington, SASHA INGBER, Newsy.
When you're back, we'll focus on a different kind of campaign that bullied Warner Brothers into shelling out $70 million for a rework of a lackluster film. I need to set aside at least 4 hours this weekend for a special project. No, not cleaning, which also needs to be addressed. It's for Zack Snyder's Justice League, the $70 million version of, can we do that one more time? We're going to step into the world of Super Friends and gaming with one of our favorite segments, Next Level Speedrun, starting with this. The wait is finally over. After years of fandom drama, the Snyder Cut of Justice League is out in public, and it's apparently pretty good. Director Zack Snyder's 4-hour rework of 2017's Justice League has garnered a largely positive critical reception, earning a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. There's a general consensus that Snyder's revisions are a step up from the original film. The big question is whether the improvements are enough to justify the film's 242-minute runtime. DC fans will likely enjoy the more cohesive and in-depth story this iteration has to offer, but if you're not a fan of Snyder's grim and gritty directorial style, Justice League probably won't surprise you much. The movie started streaming on HBO Max Thursday afternoon, which means you should be able to start watching it now or after you finish this In the Loop episode, of course, right? In post-pandemic wishlist news, Universal Studios Japan has opened up Super Nintendo World to the public. The long-delayed theme park boasts a ton of favorite Mushroom Kingdom characters and locations, plus an augmented reality Mario Kart ride. Don't get too excited if you're not already in Japan, though. The country has closed its borders to the majority of visitors in order to mitigate the COVID-19 risks. The park itself is running at limited capacity and with strict safety protocols. Universal does plan to build a Nintendo World in its US-based parks, but there's no set date for when those will launch. For now, all we can do is sit and stare enviously at Japan. Activision Blizzard, the company behind World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, and Overwatch, is laying off dozens of people in a restructuring effort. At least 50 people from the company's esports and live events division lost their jobs this week, along with an unspecified number of layoffs in other departments. The company says under 2% of its workforce, or 190 people, were affected. The company's had to refocus its major events in the face of the pandemic. Extravagant conventions like BlizzCon, along with major esports tournaments, have all shifted to online only. But it's not like Activision Blizzard has been hurting for cash recently. The company's been doing well enough for its CEO to win a $200 million contractual stock bonus, which I'm sure comes as a big comfort to the employees who were just laid off. It's the end of a meme-filled era. The last season of Keeping Up with the Kardashians premieres tonight after 20 seasons. Regardless of whether you've actually watched the show, you've probably come into contact with some form of their content. That just speaks to how the Kardashian family, immediate and extended, has permeated pop culture. Newsy's Casey Mendoza and Cody LeGros decided to give us the tag team we didn't know we wanted to break down the lasting influence of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
From Calabasas to the country's capital, you've likely been forced to keep up with the Kardashians at some point over the last decade.
We just wanted to tell you in person that we won't be going forward with filming the show anymore.
Premiering tonight is the show's final and 20th season.
And as two reporters who have professionally kept up, we are professionally obligated to analyze the Kardashian-Jenner's influence on the culture. And of course, the vibes.
I pledge allegiance to the vibes. Welcome to the White House, you guys. Such a cool aesthetic.
I can't escape the reach of the Kardashians. Even though I don't follow them on social media, where they have 800 million plus followers collectively, news of their marriages, divorces, pregnancies, and makeup launches are constantly reposted onto my feeds.
And I feel like this year is really about like the year of just realizing stuff.
The Kardashians have found a way to command our attention through nearly every single platform out there. They are the original influencers. Remember Kimoji? It broke the App Store. Now ask a Gen Zer what they want to be when they grow up. In a 2019 study, 86% said influencer, and it's not that hard to understand why. The Kardashians make millions off their notoriety, essentially creating the modern-day blueprint for social media fame.
And with a family that's this famous, their lived experiences became watershed moments in culture. The standout for me is Caitlyn Jenner.
Do you ever have doubt that you did the right thing?
Never.
When she came out as transgender, she sparked greater national discourse on transgender rights. Now, was she divisive within the trans community? Yes. But Caitlyn's controversial stances elevated already existing voices from within the trans community, which allowed Caitlyn's beliefs to evolve along the way.
I've lived a great life, and I realize in this transition that I kind of have that privileged status.
That was just one instance of the family providing a window into coping with very human issues like mental health, love, loss, success, failures, and even growth.
At first I just retweeted it, and then I sent it to my attorney. I said to her, is there anything we can do?
Like any other pop culture icon, Kim K has gone through several eras. Her new identity, political and legal activist.
I'm at the place in my life that I wanted to make a difference and just wanted to do the right thing.
Grabbing the attention of former President Trump, Kim Kardashian's advocacy granted Alice Johnson clemency while she was serving a life sentence for a first-time nonviolent drug offense.
It's undeniable that the Kardashians are industry titans with staying power. So if we think they're saying goodbye, please, they're just about to create a concept we haven't seen before.
You know what? I really appreciate you guys, each and every one of you.
So they're not really going away? I have some follow-ups. In the wake of the Atlanta area shootings that left 8 people dead, including 6 women of Asian descent, authorities hesitated to say the killings were racially motivated. But online, there's been a conversation about the historical racism and the fetishization of women from AAPI communities. and how that might have played a role regardless of whether authorities or the perpetrators say that explicitly. To help us understand the context surrounding this crime, Newsy's Kat Sandoval takes a closer look at the history of the objectification of AAPI women.
The Atlanta tragedy killed 8 people, most of whom were Asian women. The white shooter says it's not racial but sexually motivated. But some Asian American history experts say this fetishization and objectification of Asian women play a role.
Chinese migrant women were stereotyped as prostitutes in the second half of the 19th century.
This idea that Asian American women are submissive, docile, and ready to fulfill men's fantasies are also represented in popular culture, too.
Me so horny.
Like massage therapy, erotic massage.
This is a family operation.
This fetishization and objectification of Asian American women in the United States has a long history.
Asian American advocates say race and sexism are intertwined, and both have to be considered in this case.
He drove around and went to Asian American establishments, and maybe it's the ones that he frequented, but why did he frequent Asian American establishments where Asian American women worked?
While we don't know if the businesses or women have any ties to sex work, the website RubMap, which shows users where to get happy endings, features sexually explicit reviews of all 3 massage parlors. In an article published by USA Today, Elizabeth Kim, who runs a nonprofit that combats sex trafficking, said, quote, "It's not an either-or proposition. The racism and misogyny and violence are very much intertwined." For Newsy, I'm Kat Sandoval.
If you haven't done so already, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag NewsyInTheLoop. And if you have ways to support our AAPI friends in the wake of this attack and others like it, share them with me so I can give them a little signal boost. If you haven't read anything about Bitcoin or tried to sort out the cryptocurrency in your group chats of the last year, obviously you weren't bored enough during the pandemic. The digital currency has become more prevalent since it was created in 2008 and just this week reached a new high of $61,000 per Bitcoin. More businesses are beginning to accept Bitcoin as payment, and as our partner Phil Lavelle explains, the digital currency could also be the future of home buying.
It's a pretty huge house and a pretty penny for this place in sunny SoCal.
$3.2 million.
And we're not just talking normal dollars here, the kind we all know, but also a volatile replacement, the kind that you can't even touch.
It's also for sale for Bitcoin.
Yep, made famous by hackers and the dark web.
Bitcoin has a terrible problem with scammers.
Now sending investors into a spin with its swings. The volatile and confusing cryptocurrency.
It's sort of hard to handle unless you really know what you're doing with it.
Even Bitcoin ATMs springing up to buy the stuff, a national rollout, companies like COINCLOUD cashing in.
There's a lot of people using them. We've had over 250,000 customers use our machines. We've got 1,600 locations nationwide, and that's grown, over the last 7 years organically.
But the future of home buying, really?
In my opinion, it kind of is. It's really interesting. I mean, I know there's kind of an end here with Bitcoin at some point and earning it or whatnot, but there's a real, need or want or excitement about it, which is really interesting. So I think that it's going to be going for a little bit longer.
But wait a second, you might be watching this thinking, how on earth does this all work? I don't understand Bitcoin. And trust me, you're not going to be on your own. So allow me.
David, you are an expert in Bitcoin. I'm going to ask you to do the impossible. Explain what it is and why you would buy a house in 10 seconds. Go.
Bitcoin is an attempt to make a decentralized currency that's electronic. For the purpose of buying things, think of it as a commodity that you can buy or sell for a given price in dollars. And if you're making a large purchase, you can use it as a substitute currency if the buyer will accept it. It's not very good at being money, but people can and do use it a bit like money.
Bitcoin's value has swung wildly this last month, worth $45,000 per coin 1 week, more than $60,000 a few weeks later. There is return and risk. Let's say you sell this place for whatever you take for it, and then the next day Bitcoin goes, which, it could do, it has been doing. What happens then?
That's scary.
It is.
I guess that's why we put it out there that it's for sale at a certain amount in dollars, but it's at 1.5 times the rate at the time of signing. That way, at that moment, that's what you're contracted at. So there's no, once you've signed it, that's what you're getting.
So the currency of the future starting to sell the houses of today. This just one of a handful of homes across the country testing these waters. An extra option, even if lots of us don't quite understand it. Phil Lavelle, Newsy, Los Angeles.
That's it for us, gang. As always, thanks for watching. We'll be back for more in The Loop next week. Same time, same place. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.